Hello again everybody! So today I'm back and I'm going to be doing something I've not done in a little bit actually. It's been quite a while since my last one, but I'm going to be back with a book review. So the book I'm going to be reviewing is actually one which a few people have requested a review for, and which I think is having a real big buzz around it at the minute. I think it's one that a lot of people are talking about, a lot of people are reading, so I thought this was the perfect time to do a review and see what you guys thought about it too. So the book I'm going to be reviewing is Look Who's Back by Timur Vermes. So it's originally a book in German that's been translated and released in the UK in the past 6 months or so, and it's done really, really well as a book. It's sold really well, as you can tell by the cover. It's really eye-catching and interesting, and I'm looking forward to telling you guys what I thought about it and seeing what you guys thought about it too. So let's get straight on with the concept. So I think from the very first, this has got a really interesting concept to it for so many reasons. Firstly, the cover is brilliant. It tells you straight away what it's going to be about, Hitler. And also it's really eye-catching. The blurb on the back is brilliant. It basically just says he's back and he's furious, but spelled like Fuhrer, which I've mentioned before is one of my favourite things ever. So that sells it really well. And I think it's just the actual concept of the book, that it's Hitler waking up in Berlin in 2011, is absolutely fantastic because you can straight away see there's a lot of differences between the world today and the world when Hitler was in power. And you can tell that his views are going to be really interesting added into current society, and I think straight away this is one of the books in the past 6 months, 12 months that's really, really stood out to me and really caught my eye, and that's quite hard to do with so many new books, but this one really, really pulls it off, and I think the concept is genius. So it gets off to a really promising start with the concept, but what do I think about the plot? All in all, I think the plot is good. I think it first starts really well. Hitler just randomly wakes up, and one of the things it does really well is, obviously there's a lot of questions around how Hitler has reappeared, but it's really cleverly brushes them aside, and that Hitler basically has some internal monologue that says, you know, it doesn't matter why I'm here, it's what I do now I'm here. And so because you're in Hitler's head, it kind of completely makes sense that the book doesn't explore how he's back. It's why he's back, and I think it's really, really interesting that it does that in a way without making it feel like there's a plot hole. Other than that, I think it's really clever. It goes on some nice rants about TV and modern day reality television and the internet and YouTube, and it's really clever how it plays all that together. And watching Hitler try and discover the internet for the first time is brilliant. I also think that the way that the character of Hitler interacts with the modern world and how different it is to his own society was fascinating, really well executed. There are some issues it shies away from that it maybe should have dealt with, but I think all in all, it really tackles the issues that were big for Hitler, things like Turkish immigration into Germany, the relationship with Poland and Germany's borders. All those things are really cleverly explored, and they are what would be important to Hitler, and so it makes sense they're covered, and the author does it in a really good way. I do have a few gripes with it, most notably the ending. So I've mentioned before in videos that the ending of a book is vital for me, and this has got a really, really lacklustre ending. I like a book that builds to a climax and has a big, dramatic or revealing final sequence, and I know this isn't that kind of book, but it still felt like a very limp ending. It feels like the author could have done so much more with the ending, and it just doesn't live up to the expectations and the promise of the rest of the book, that by the time you read the last 20-30 pages you feel really let down by it. So all in all, the plot's a mixed bag. I think what the author does, he does really well. I just think the ending is a little bit of a letdown. So after the plot, the next thing is characters. So obviously the most important character in this is the main character of Hitler. You spend the whole time in his head, and it's how he interacts with the world. And I have to say, he's brilliantly constructed. It's done in such a funny way. It's the dry humour, the dry contrast between Hitler's views and his internal monologues and the world around him, and how people are interacting with him. It's fascinating. It's really cleverly done. And the character of Hitler, I never thought I'd say this, is actually quite endearing, which is worrying. I'm not a Nazi, don't worry. I just think he's really well constructed in this. The supporting characters, obviously, in a book like this, are less important, but I think a lot of them are still quite well-rounded and quite cleverly crafted so that they deal with some of the issues that are important. So, for example, the person employed as Hitler's secretary in this starts to have difficulties because her grandma new people in concentration camps, etc. So all the important issues, the legacy of what Hitler did, Hitler's current views, how they all fit with the modern world, are really cleverly brought into play by the supporting cast of characters, and I do think that again has done really well to make it quite a complete book. So the other thing I'm going to look at is the writing of the book. Now all in all I think it's quite well written. It's not difficult language, it's quite easy to follow, but I do have to question at some points the translation. I mean, with translated books it's always hard to know whether the translation is dodgy or the original writing is dodgy. There are just a few clunky phrases and clunky paragraphs, and especially if the author has a tendency of starting off chapters with a bit of a rant from Hitler, which then ties into what's going on in Hitler's life in this. And I understand why he's trying to do it, I understand the points he's getting across. It's a bit hard and a bit laborious, and I felt myself switching off and wanting to get past this internal dialogue of Hitler's and to his interaction with the world. So I think all in all the writing is a bit flawed in some ways, but most of the time it's quite unobtrusive and just serves its purpose quite well. But the last thing then is just other thoughts. So for this, I've only really got one other thought, and it's just to do with the context of the book. So a lot of stuff in here is very German-centric. So there's a lot of references to German pop culture or German celebrities, people from German history, that if you are German, I'm pretty sure you would probably know everybody mentioned. But I think quite a common issue in the UK and other international distribution has been that a lot of people just don't know who they are. There's a really handy glossary at the back, but by the time you get to the back you've already read the book, and I still think it's quite detracting to have to flick to the back, read up on who somebody is, and then flick back to the novel itself. And it's no fault of the authors, because I think for a German market it's probably perfect, it's really easy, but I think for UK readers and American readers it can just be a little bit detracting and quite difficult sometimes. But I don't think the author's to fault for that, it's just something to bear in mind if you're looking to read it. So then what's my overall opinion? For this, I have to say, I really enjoyed it. I think it all in all lives up to the concept. What you see on the cover, what you read on the back is exactly what you get inside, and I think it delivers really well in offering something a bit funny, a bit different to anything else that's currently available. I think it's a really clever topic to cover, and I think the author does it really well. All in all, I really enjoyed it. I'm really glad I read it, but I wouldn't say I'm rushing back to read it again. I think there's just some slight issues with the writing. The ending really put a real downturn on it for me, and it just wasn't the most gripping of books. I enjoyed reading it, but at no point did I ever think I need to pick it up and carry on. It was kind of a, oh, if I get some time I will, but I didn't make time for it, and I think the really good books you make time for. So all in all, I'm giving this an 8 out of 10. So I think it's one that everybody should give a read to, because it's very funny, it's very different, and I think most people will enjoy this a lot. It's just not a masterpiece. So there you have it. That's my review of Look Who's Back by Timur Vermes. Definitely give it a read, I think you'll really enjoy it. If you've enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'd love to hear what you guys think about it. I've heard quite a lot of mixed opinions on this book, so if any of you have read it or are considering reading it and don't know whether you want to or not, and have got any thoughts about it at all, comment down below, because I'm really interested. I think there's a lot of stuff you can talk about with this one. Other than that, I'm going to leave my Twitter and Goodreads down below as ever, and I'll be back in the next few days with my next video.